Hello and welcome in. It's time for another Epoch class overview, and this time we'll be talking about the Warrior. I spent almost 3 hours gathering PvE insights from Enforcer and PvP insights from Lil Jon, two expert warriors from the Epoch Discord. Thank you guys for answering all my questions and giving me valuable information to make this video today. You know the drill, grab a seat in the front, maybe a snack, and let's get started. There aren't a lot of general class changes to the Warrior, so this section will be short. First, Warriors can now learn Victory Rush at level 10. This should give you a little easier chain killing potential if you stay healthy. And like most class buffs, shouts are now raid wide. Alright, time for the Arms Warrior. There have been a lot of changes to the Arms talent tree. The capstone talent for Arms is now the famous Blade Storm. Notable Epoch changes are a higher cooldown, and you can now be slowed to a minimum of 60% of your base movement speed. The Sweeping Strikes talent is now on the Arms tree. This effect can be combined with Blade Storm on Epoch to Sweep Storm, essentially duplicating Blade Storm's whirlwinds to one nearby target. Endless Rage, which was the old capstone, is now a 3-point talent, and beside it lies a new talent, Empowered Rend. Although the general speculation is that Rend will still be too weak and thus not crucial to your damage. Oh, you may have noticed Improved Mortal Strike is missing from the talent tree. That is because it is no longer a talent and its effects have been baked into the base ability. Those effects being a 1 second lower cooldown and the 5% damage increase. And the last talent change, Improved Slam has moved to the Arms talent tree. This will probably result in earlier slamming in your leveling journey. When it comes to a PvE build, you can spec for extra cleave by taking Blade Storm and Sweeping Strikes, but you will suffer in single target. The raiding, dual wield, and two-hander build for Arms will both be very similar to the TBC version, so don't expect too many changes there. In PvP, however, with this version of Blade Storm, you can combo an already devastating and flexible cooldown with Sweeping Strikes to deal even more burst damage if you can catch your enemies in a cleave situation. However, it does come at the cost of Death Wish, which is now in the Fury tree. Despite the power gained, warriors will feel the loss of this valuable cooldown in certain situations. Overall, the PvP experience as Arms will be similar to TBC, with Mace spec potentially still being the go-to, although Lil Jon is convinced other weapon specs could have a place. This could change over time as we discover some of the new custom weapons in the game. That's it for Arms, onto Fury. Fury's capstone is still Rampage, but there are a few changes in the tree we should discuss. First, Commanding Presence had its bonus per rank dropped at 3% from 5%. This is probably due to the fact that these shouts are now raid wide. We've seen this similar treatment across other classes as well. Next, Improved Execute has moved down a row to replace where Improved Slam was, and next to that, Sweeping Strikes has been replaced by Death Wish. In PvE, Fury Warriors will most likely be dual wielding in the endgame, and their performance in raid is speculated to be more impressive than Arms. Fury Warriors will most likely employ a Death Wish type spec, except instead of going for Sweeping Strikes, you will continue down the Fury tree as it's not worth grabbing the talent from the Arms tree for most encounters. In PvP, Fury Warriors can be a wrecking ball of damage. You could reach into Arms to pick up Sweeping Strikes, pick up Death Wish, Enrage, and Flurry from the Fury tree and go to town. There are options to also grab Mortal Strike or Bloodthirst with Improved Whirlwind. This build is typically more effective if you're roaming around a BG in a Death Ball. Don't be afraid to experiment with Fury in PvP. Even if Arms is the tried and true PvP spec most warriors will focus on. And finally, let's talk about Prot Warrior. Protection hasn't received many changes as of now, but the spec is still very strong when it comes to the early tiers. Your base stats and built-in avoidance with things like shield block make you incredibly tanky very early, but you don't scale well into later tiers. With current balance, threat issues will begin to arise as the server progresses. One positive note, Devastate on Epoch will treat the rogue ability Expose Armor as 5 Sunder armor stacks and properly scale without removing the effect. This is unlike its behavior in TBC. Finally, the talent improved taunt has been altered to include a 15-yard range bonus to the ability, a convenient upgrade if you choose to grab it. Itemization has not changed from Classic as far as we know. You'll probably still be looking for your Hands of Justice or Black Hand's Breath, but there are thousands of new items in Epoch. Who knows if something else will prove stronger? Here are the Warrior Dungeon tier set bonuses. Let's focus on the tank set first. The 6-piece bonus to Shield Slam is great for building threat in an opener, and the 8-piece buff to Thunderclap could actually change your rotation and include more uses of that ability. On the DPS set, the hit and expertise item bonuses are great and typically not something you have a lot of access to in Classic or TBC. The 6-piece reduction to those major CDs are cool, but you may not get an extra use out of them in a single encounter. The 8-piece seems really effective in a cleave or AoE scenario, and who doesn't like to spin more often? When it comes to leveling, the introduction of improved slam to the arms tree might convince some players to pick up arms leveling much earlier, especially when you consider you'll have sweeping strikes at 27 and blade storm at 44. Enforcer actually had a good point about this and how much it improves the dungeoning experience.
I mean, Blade Storm is absolutely cool. It's gonna make them a lot stronger in the early dungeons because Warrior has some of the strongest cleave in the game. Early on, their cleave is kind of weak. During dungeons, they can play two hands and just Blade Storm every other pack and do insane damage.
Of course, leveling as Fury is still okay if you're interested in bursts of damage using Death Wish during Enrage windows. If you're tanking dungeons as you level, you can go the usual arms tank build, as speccing protection early is not too effective. But with changes to some dungeons and new content, who knows, maybe you'll need a shield on hand in case things get dicey. For professions, maybe you can think about blacksmithing for the belt buckles or enchanting as well. When it comes to racials, you may want to swap around depending on what your latest and greatest weapon type is at endgame, but at the same time, some of the racial abilities are too good to forgo just for weapon expertise. Keep all these things in mind as you choose. Again, a big thank you to Enforcer and Lil Jon for your time, and you all in the audience for joining me again. Leave me a comment if you think Bladestorm is going to be OP or what other class you want me to talk about. Of course, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of these. You know I'm already working on the next one. I'll be streaming lots of Project Epoch on launch and going forward, so join me here on YouTube live. This is Muzzy, and I'll see you guys next time.